This is me, but this is also me. Let's talk about it. Okay, so real quick, I just want to mention that this video will dive into some heavier topics, such as obsessive dieting and calorie counting. So if you feel like this might trigger some unpleasant feelings within you, I would advise you to skip this video, because I want to be completely open and honest while telling my very personal story. So ever since I was a child, I've always struggled with weight and my appearance. In our household there was little to no structure and I never learned to eat healthy. My mom used to give me everything I desired, and around my 10th year I started to gain weight. This ultimately resulted in me becoming obese, which was a big detriment to how I viewed myself. When I was about 12 years old, I weighed around 80 kilograms, which is a lot for a child, especially considering that I'm very short. I got bullied for my appearance every single day, to the point where I felt ashamed of myself. I remember one time a classmate was running circles around me, constantly shouting "fatty" to me. I tried my best to ignore the bullying, but of course it had a big impact on my self-image and confidence. Needless to say, this is no way to treat a fat person, or anyone for that matter. But unfortunately it did cause me to associate fatness with a negative, dark period in my life. For a long time, I saw obesity as the worst thing ever, because that's simply how I was treated for being overweight. When I was 14, I suddenly began losing a lot of weight due to stress. I won't be going into detail about what I was stressed about. I'll probably make a video about that someday. But basically there was a lot going on in my life that caused me a lot of stress. Like extreme amounts of stress. My hunger disappeared, and before I knew it, I had lost a couple of kilograms. I remember stepping on the scale one morning and seeing 72 kilograms. It surprised me because I was used to seeing numbers in the 80s. And I'll be honest, seeing this number made me really happy back then, because I was finally losing weight after several failed attempts. And I didn't even need to do much about it, the stress did all the work. This of course is no healthy way of losing weight, but I can't lie that I was gladly accepting it back then. It took a couple of months, but I finally reached a point where I wasn't overweight anymore. From my 14th to my 18th, I was pretty consistently weighing around 60 kilograms, which I was completely fine with. The bullying stopped and my self-confidence was slowly returning. I wasn't very occupied with my weight during this time, as I finally had a lot more structure in my life and I lived much healthier. So I wasn't worried about gaining weight at all. Starting from my 18th, my life changed a lot, which caused me to gain weight again, unfortunately. I started to live on my own, which caused me so much freedom. I could buy whatever food I wanted, there was no one to stop me. I wanted to try and eat everything, and I had no breaks. I gained a lot of weight very quickly. I wasn't even aware of it for a very long time until people started pointing it out to me. One time when I visited my grandma, she took notice of it, but I still shrugged it off, thinking it wasn't that bad. But what I didn't realize is that I was gaining a lot of weight, to the point where certain clothes didn't fit me anymore and my condition was getting worse. I had trouble with long walks and bike rides, and I became breathless much quicker. I was in denial for a very long time, years in fact. Looking back, a big reason of why I gained weight is because of my undiagnosed ADHD back then. I didn't have a lot to do at home, so whenever I was bored I would just grab a snack and distract myself. It felt like the most normal thing ever to me, to just grab a snack every day and eat it all in one go. It stimulated me and made me feel better. And also, everyone around me seemed like they ate just as much, if not more than me, so why couldn't I? I genuinely didn't know any better. Nowadays, I realize that my height also has a lot to do with this. I'm a small person, only 158 centimeters, or 5'1" for you Americans. Now, people in the Netherlands are known for being very tall. This makes a big difference, since the taller you are, the more you can eat, to put it very simple. I was uneducated on the topic of food, weight and health in general, so I just ate the same as my friends and family did, even though they were much taller than me. This, coupled with the constant snacking, it's really not strange that I was once again up in the 80s before I knew it. I was afraid to step on the scale. I knew it would be bad, but I didn't want to know how bad. One time I did step on it though. I'm pretty sure I was about 82 kilograms and I felt so ashamed of myself. Slowly I began to realize that I had in fact gained weight again, and the feeling of being a failure rose up again. All the bullying I had experienced as a child, all the insecurities I had, those feelings came right back again. It was truly awful because it felt like I had taken so many steps back. I really wanted to lose the weight, but I had no idea where to start as I was just so uneducated about food and dieting. One time when I woke up, I was scared of eating breakfast because I didn't want to gain any more weight. Of course, that's no way to lose weight, but I really didn't know what else to do. When my mother suddenly passed away in December of 2019, my entire world was shaken up and it took me a long time to process everything that had happened. I was grieving and for many months I was unable to do anything. So you can probably imagine that dieting was the last thing on my mind at this moment. About 6 months after my mom passed away, my mind began to clear up and I was slowly starting to do stuff again. During the summer of 2020, I educated myself on the topic of ADHD. I eventually got an official diagnosis and that's when everything clicked. Suddenly everything made sense. I always thought something felt off about me in comparison to others, but I finally had an answer. I wasn't crazy, I wasn't lazy, I was neurodivergent, and I was simply built different. It also explained my excessive snacking. As a person with ADHD, I am bored much quicker, my attention span is lower, and I need stimulation. And food was that, it was my stimulation. It finally explained why I had such a strange relationship with food. Now, I just want to give a fair warning that from this point on, I will be talking about my hyperfixation with food, dieting, and calorie counting. While this may have helped me lose weight, I do want to mention that the way I handled this was not the best. So with my ADHD diagnosis, I got the chance to try out medicine to help me stay focused. And so I tried a medicine called Ritalin. One of the side effects, however, was that during the first few weeks of usage, you may not feel hungry anymore. And this is exactly what happened to me. I tried Ritalin and I could only eat like half of what I would normally eat. I felt full so quickly. There wasn't much I could do about it, so I just accepted it for what it was. A few weeks passed and I eventually found myself on the scale again. I had lost weight for the first time in years. I so distinctly remember this moment. I was standing on the scale, seeing the number below the 80s for the first time in I don't even know how long. And I thought to myself, this is it. This is the moment to do it. I have to keep this momentum going. I had this overwhelming feeling that I was finally ready to take this on. And that's exactly what I did. I began to educate myself on several topics. How to eat healthy, how to actually lose weight, what's a good BMI, how to calorie count, and so much more. To the point where it became my new hyperfixation, which is a symptom of my ADHD, ironically. So the side effects of the Ritalin began to wear off and my hunger started to return. That didn't really matter to me though, because I had already gained a new hyperfixation in dieting. And this hyperfixation definitely had results as I consistently lost 4 kilograms a month. Perhaps 4 kilograms may not sound like much, but if you take into consideration that I did this for over 6 months straight, yeah, it adds up to a pretty big weight loss. So how did I even do this? Okay, so the first thing I did was I stopped with snacking. No more chips, no more ice cream every day. I only allowed myself to have a snack one day of the week. That way I could look forward to it all week and I would appreciate the snack much more when I finally had it. But funny enough, I noticed that the less I snacked, the less I needed it. So after a while, that one snack day, it wasn't even necessary anymore. Instead of chips, I would eat healthy nuts or a banana, stuff like that. I replaced all my unhealthy snacks with something healthy and low calorie. Eventually, I began to count my calories in an app every single day. I did not skip anything that went through my mouth. And with that I mean even the tiniest of things, like a single walnut, some lemonade or a little bit of honey in my tea. Every single thing was written down in the app and it gave me a complete and honest overview of everything I ate and drank. There also came a point where I weighed myself every day and wrote it down in the app. This honestly came from a place of genuine interest because I was just so hyperfixated that I wanted to see how my diet impacted my weight. I found it all so fascinating and I liked celebrating milestones by sharing photos of my progress online. Yeah, I made a bunch of photos of myself during this time because I was just so interested in the entire process. Now, looking back, this was way too obsessive and I don't think this was mentally very good for me. I had many headaches because I ate so little and I would simply take painkillers instead of eating more. It was not healthy at all, but I also can't lie and say that it didn't work. it worked incredibly well for me, and for the first time in my life, I finally felt like I was in control of my own body. And let me tell you, having no worries about your weight and physical appearance for the first time in your life, it can give so much peace. Of course, it's not as rose-tinted as it may seem, because this obsession had its downsides. Because I was simply too obsessed. Even though I was living very healthy in terms of food and exercise, there was a big problem on the horizon: body dysphoria. I want to say right away that I'm no expert on body dysphoria, and I can only speak from my own experience. For many months, I had one goal in mind: reach sub 60 kilograms. If I did that, then I would be the same weight I was during my teen years. It would be a healthy weight according to the BMI, and I would finally fit my old clothes again. And so for the longest time, I was fixated on this goal, thinking that everything would be okay once I reached that. And spoiler alert, reaching this goal did not satisfy me at all. I really thought that this goal would fix everything, that I could finally be happy with myself, accept my body for what it is, and leave the dieting behind. But that's not what happened at all. I was still not happy with myself after I reached this goal. I still thought I looked fat. I was constantly worried about how others perceived me. My mind raced with questions like, do they think I'm fat? Or do they think I'm skinny? What do I even look like? What am I? I had these insecurities for months, to the point where I thought on multiple occasions, well, if I'm still not satisfied with myself, I should just lose more weight. That will fix it. But losing weight when you're already at an objectively healthy weight is hard and can be dangerous even. I tried to force myself to eat extremely little, like below 1200 calories a day. Because the less you weigh, the less you have to eat to lose weight. And for those of you who have no idea, 1200 calories is very little. There were days where I had friends over and I had way too little energy for them because I did not allow myself to eat more. I would see them eat cookies and chips without any worries, as I only ate some fruit on an almost empty stomach. I won't lie, it felt kind of unfair, but I didn't see any other choice than to punish myself and hope I would reach a weight I was happy with. This may come as no surprise, but this was not sustainable. I also didn't see much results from this, as I lost almost no weight. My weight was stuck in the 50 kilograms and I couldn't lower it anymore. I had to accept it. It took a long time, but I gradually learned to accept that this is where my weight was and that this was the end of my weight loss journey. Most people would be more than satisfied with the progress I had made. Within a year, I had lost over 20 kilograms. But I was left with a messed up diet, an obsession with calorie counting, body dysphoria, and the constant looming fear of losing control and gaining weight again. The idea of gaining weight was my biggest fear for a long time. Ever since my childhood, I was bullied and looked down upon whenever I was fat. For me, being fat equaled being a failure. I associated it with some of the darkest times of my life, and no way in hell was I going back to that. So, in a way, it felt like I had to protect myself from gaining weight. I would step on the scale every day to make absolutely sure I wasn't gaining weight. And at a certain point, my mood throughout the day would be determined by my weight that morning. If I had lost a little bit of weight, then I would be really happy. But if I had gained a little bit, even if only like 1 kilogram, my mood would be ruined and it would be hard to let the thought go. I really can't emphasize how scared I was of losing all my progress. In my mind, it was like, if I can't even be satisfied with how I look right now, I would be even worse off if I weighed more. It really got to my head in the worst possible way, and I battled with this body dysphoria for 2 years. At this point, my relationship with food and weight was very rocky. I was an insecure mess who couldn't appreciate my appearance and was constantly worried. It's honestly so sad to look back at myself during this time. Whenever I had the chance, I would ask my friends and family how I looked, and they would always respond with, "You look great, don't worry about it." But it never helped with the insecurities, no matter how many times I heard the compliments. It took me a really long time to accept myself, to not see fatness as such an awful thing and to finally eat normally. To stop the calorie counting and to stop weighing myself out of fear. To be honest, I don't know how or when it exactly happened, but somewhere during this past year, I finally overcame it all. To be able to say that I have finally accepted myself for who I am, it's a very big thing for me to say. especially to say it and actually mean it. It's been such a long process, but I finally feel like I'm out of that bubble. I don't worry anymore. You may wonder, what does this actually mean in practice? Well, first of all, I do still think it's important to maintain my current weight, but the intent is different. I want to be healthy because it's good for my body. I want to keep fitting in my favorite clothes. I like the way I look right now and I want to stay like this. The biggest difference is that I'm finally happy with myself, and that I don't have this looming fear of gaining weight anymore. And I think my reasons for wanting to stay at this weight are also very valid. But I also feel like if I were to gain weight again, it wouldn't be the end of the world. Gaining weight isn't inherently a bad thing. So because of that, I'm not really worried anymore. Like, if I do gain weight, I would just be like, okay, cool, whatever, you know? I might lose that weight or I might not. It doesn't really matter. My body is fine just the way it is. It was really hard, but I finally stopped calorie counting and I can now trust on my own body to know what I should or shouldn't eat. I've also learned to listen to my hunger cues again and to respond to it. When I'm hungry, I have to eat. It's as simple as that. Now that I know the ins and outs of my ADHD, I don't feel like snacking every day anymore and I can trust myself on that. I don't have to worry about it anymore and that gives me so much peace. The way that I lost weight ultimately wasn't the best, but I'm happy with where I am now. I like the way I look now. I'm not perfect and I don't want to be perfect. Accepting yourself as the way you are is so much more than reaching your goal weight. And it took me a long time to realize that, but I'm really glad that I'm finally here. My body dysphoria is not in control of my life anymore, and I finally feel free. If you also struggle with these issues, I would advise seeking a specialist. Thank you for listening to my story, and see you next time. Bye bye!